Fasten your seatbelts for the realest Eagles and Sixers YouTuber! One who plays no clickbait and gets to the point! The myth, the legend, Nicky Stees! Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. I'm simply statue, think the slate, dropping unrealistic mags, 2K takes for the clip. Even though cats like that get views closer to the milli, never hear me preach, slip on to Philly. Before you watch the Eagles all the way through the early 22, authentic talk, forget what others do. Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. The 24/7, 365 way. Sports content for the reals to fill the day. Good morning, folks. It is around that time again. It is Tuesdays around 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and your boy Nicky Stees is here for episode 23 of the 3-Point Blitz. It's the big day for the NFL. All 32 teams have to have their roster trimmed down to 53 players by 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today. That means there are going to be players that are going to get cut. And that means some players are either going to have to find a new team or get signed to the practice squad and wait their opportunity or the next opportunity. But with that being said, while we're on it, before we get into the 3-Point Blitz, quick shout out to the Hardcore Sports Network, as always, for letting us stream on their platform. They play a big role in me doing these streams, and they're a huge part of the reason why I continuously do these live streams. And we're doing this on my channel as well. There's the link. There's my chat. There's the link right there to hit me up. Catch my videos. And with that being said, though, folks, now we going to sit there. What we going to do is, so before we get into this, let's start out later tonight, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be going live again. So give me one sec. So what we're going to be doing is later tonight, we're going to be going live tonight at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about the 53-man roster once it's official for the Philadelphia Eagles. So what that ties into the 3-Point Blitz is, not really going to talk about the Eagles on this one. We're going to talk about the other 31 teams and most of the important moves that were made as opposed to the Philadelphia Eagles. So we're not really going to talk much about the Eagles on this one, folks. That'll be later tonight, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So Eagles fans, if you want to hear my thoughts on the Eagles, can tune in tonight, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my channel and the Hardcore Sports Network, just like we're doing it for the 3-Point Blitz. to hear my thoughts on that. But with that being said, though, on this one, we're going to talk about the rest of the league, like I said. In 1 second, we're going to start with the rant of the week. And for this week, for the rant of the week, it's going to be about a specific contract move that happened. So the Cincinnati Bengals made a move. They got Trey Hendrickson back on the roster, but they only got him on a 1-year deal. So what that means is the Cincinnati Bengals taking a cheap way out instead of giving him a big contract just to bring back the sack leader for 1 year. Now, with that being said, the Cincinnati Bengals, look, they have a terrible defense, and Trey Hendrickson, he's going to be the guy who, he's the best player in the defense, but the rest of the defense is garbage. Let's face it, Cincinnati Bengals do not have a good defense at all, folks. They don't have a good defense one bit, and they're bringing him in. I mean, it's just it's terrible right there. It's terrible for the Bengals. I mean, you're taking the cheap way out on your best player, your sack leader, the one guy that gives your defense any sign of life. But you take a look at that Cincinnati Bengals defense. Once you get past Trey Hendrickson, good luck the rest of the way. If you're going against the Bengals defense, though, offensive side, hey, you get past Trey Hendrickson, you're probably going to have a good shot at a completion or a nice pickup because the rest of the defense is garbage. We saw last year they was getting gashed, giving up 30 to 40 points per game, showing that once you get past Hendrickson, you got a good shot at gaining positive yards downfield, if not scoring a touchdown against that defense. And for the Cincinnati Bengals, knowing their defense has been struggling, drafting the rawest prospect in the first round, and now you got the one guy who keeps your defense somewhat of a chance, who gives them a shot at getting to the quarterback. Now you're going to get rid of him. Like in the long term, it looked like you was going to get rid of him, but now you're just bringing him back on a 1-year deal, and you're like, instead of giving him a full contract, being that he's the heart and soul of your defense, that makes no sense. And this whole Trey Hendrickson saga has been an incompetence by the Bengals. First, even allowing him in a position where he could get traded. But then once you saw that nothing opened up to pull a deal off and make a trade happen, now you bring him back on a 1-year deal just to cover you for the season. That's it. Just 1 year. This is the guy that's still in peak shape. Marku, what is up? He's still at his peak. Instead of locking him into a long-term contract to help your defense out in the long term, you're going to sit there and just give him a 1-year deal. You think that's going to work out in the long term? And for the Bengals, sad part is they probably think, oh, yeah, we can get a 1-year deal done. We'll just keep giving them 1-year deals. How long do you think that great train's going to last to keep giving them 1-year deal trains? For the Cincinnati Bengals, come on, seriously? You really think if that's what their plan, then they screw over in the long term. Sure, you got them locked this year, but in the long term, you in serious trouble. And there are who's saying Mika deal will get done eventually. Yeah, eventually, probably at some point, they'll probably get that deal done. Bring Mika back, and we'll see where they go from there. Koo said, but not like Trey Hendrickson, 1-year rin-tank. Koo said, rental, 1-year rental, gotcha. Yeah, basically, that is exactly what they're doing. They're basically treating them like a 1-year rental. It's like, wait a minute. I'm Trey Hendrickson. I'm the top guy. I'm the best player on this defense. And you're treating me like a 1-year rental? That's good. That's karma that's going to come back to bite the Bengals in the long haul. May not happen right now, but eventually in the long haul, it's going to come back to bite them. This is just terrible player management by an organization who's consistently struggled. You see why certain organizations struggle to keep their momentum going, why usually their good runs are only brief, and then they usually hit a rough spot. Or you see teams that might have a star quarterback, but find ways to be mediocre and find ways to mess it up. You point to a team like the Cincinnati Bengals as one. It's poor decision-making, like giving Trey Hendrickson a one-year deal when he's the best pass rusher in the NFL. You should value him. You should cherish his presence and make sure he continues to be a vital part of your organization. That's just cheapness, arrogance by Mike Brown and the rest of the Bengals organization. But now you see why certain teams like the Bengals end up wasting the peaks of star quarterbacks like Joe Burrow. It's because of incompetent decision-making such as this. That's just one example. And for the Bengals, man, they're going to get their karma for sure. It's not a matter of if, but when it comes back to bite them. So shame on the Bengals. They're huge losers for the preseason. Remember their defense getting torched by the Eagles' backups? Now the whole Trey Hendrickson saga, that's enough to make them losers for the preseason. And I'll get more into that later, some of the winners and losers. I mean, pretty much covered the Bengals one already, so we'll get a few other losers there. But before we dive into the projected winners and losers of the preseason, remember, it's a big day today. All the NFL teams have to have their rosters trimmed down to 53 players, which means there's going to be a lot of last-minute moves going on. We saw yesterday there was a lot going on, a lot of teams switching the helm. You know, we saw Carson Wentz getting signed by the Vikings, all that. We still got some moves being made right now. We're going to talk about them, go briefly through some of the main moves that were made over the past couple days. So with that being said, folks, let's dive right into it. We'll talk about this bad boy right here. So first, we got yesterday, some of the notable moves that came out of yesterday were you had, like I said, Carson Wentz coming to the Vikings. Yo, Blaze, what is up? This stemmed from Sunday's move where they traded Sam Howell to the Eagles in exchange for a draft pick. So now Howell will be on the Eagles' backup role. And with the Vikings cutting their backup, they needed to sign a backup. They signed Carson Wentz, which that's right there. Carson Wentz, it's kind of a shame. But now Carson Wentz himself is a player that Carson Wentz is a guy that, in theory, is a decent backup. He's a guy who was on verge of an MVP season, had a solid, respectable statistical season in 2019, but he wasn't consistent. And we know he had a big ego from his time with the Eagles and then his one season with the Colts. So that's why there's that kind of that red flag about bringing in Wentz, even though in theory he's a decent backup, but he's a guy who's been very selfish at times and very egotistical. That's why there's that red flag. But at the same time, you got to wonder with Carson Wentz, a guy who has had moments, if God forbid, the Vikings, God need him to play. If God forbid J.J. McCarthy gets hurt again and you need Wentz for a game or two, you're hoping maybe he could fit in well with the team around him, similar to what Sam Darnold did. So I get why the Vikings brought him in as a backup, being like, all right, here's a guy who's had some success as a starter. We were in an emergency situation with Howell last year. We put up a damn good effort. One of the best regular season teams not to win their division of all time. So I think we could trust Carson Wentz. That's kind of the mindset the Vikings are in, thinking they could trust him if needed. But obviously they're going to go with J.J. McCarthy. He's coming into the season healthy. You plan on using him, see what he can do. So that's really what the plan right there is. Trust me, we're at the point now, Arku, that we don't have any, trust me, we don't think about Wentz anymore. We've long moved on from him. When Jalen Hurts stepped up, especially when we had that Super Bowl season, even the Super Bowl 57 season, right, that was it. And now here we are a few seasons later. Hurts is fresh off a Super Bowl MVP. Trust me, we're not even thinking about the dude. So with that being said, though, you got just that's one move right there. Another move, we had Kenny Pickett. Well, the Raiders made a couple moves yesterday. First, there was a trade with the Browns where they acquired Kenny Pickett to be their backup, which I get. I mean, the Raiders are obviously looking for a backup, to back up Geno Smith. I thought personally they should have drafted a quarterback, let Geno be the mentor. But obviously, Pete Carroll still believes in Geno Smith. So he's back. He's there with them for now. And now you got Kenny Pickett as a backup who he's gotten to the point now where basically he's being passed around like a blunt at a party. First with the Steelers, then the Eagles as a backup for a season. Then he's with the Browns for a preseason, only to be a backup, maybe starter for a brief bit for the Raiders during the upcoming regular season. There is some crazy as hell. Oh, you talk about the Eagles fans. Yeah, dude, there's crazy people of all fan bases, Arku. Trust me, it's every fan base, to be fair. It's not, the Eagles are just one of them. There's 31 other fan bases with some crazy fans, too. So that's just part of the territory that comes with being a sports fan in general for all sports teams. But what else are we looking? We got, Rasul Douglas. Remember Eagles fans? Remember Rasul Douglas? Former Eagle, former Packer, former Bill, former Raider. He's on a one-year deal with the Dolphins to try to bolster their secondary. I mean, he's a solid one-year rental. Rasul Douglas, he can from time to time do solid, but he's never been the long-term guy. He's never been a guy that a team's kept long-term, relied on long-term. But Douglas is a decent guy to fill a void temporarily. But when you're the Miami Dolphins and you're not sure about Jalen Ramsey's future, you don't really have much in your secondary outside of that. Rasul Douglas, yeah, he's a solid piece for what he is, but unless you have like one or two guys, put it this way, if the Eagles brought back Rasul Douglas, let's just say they did with Mitchell and DeJean, Rasul Douglas would have been a better fit with his skill set in that role than Miami being the number 2 guy. I feel it. Yeah, that's not really a great role for him. I mean, he'll help. He adds some depth to them for sure. And Rasul Douglas is a respectable defensive back. Remember, he had that one really good year with the Packers. He had even a solid season with the Eagles his rookie year. I mean, Douglas is a solid defensive back, but we know he's gone from team to team. So he's never been the long-term guy that you lock into a long-term contract like Darius Slay was for the Lions and then even for the Eagles for a bit. He was never a long-term guy like a Harrison Smith for the Vikings. So while Douglas fills a role temporarily, it's just a temporary fix though, too. I mean, don't get me wrong. Douglas can help out during the season. He gives them the chance to play better, but he's not the long-term answer. So, but yeah, it does fill a temporary hole. And some other moves. You got Marcus Epps, got released by the Patriots. Remember Marcus Epps? You got the Saints. You got Jake Hainers getting waived. And Hassan Ridgeway, with a pectoral injury, is being placed on injured reserve for the Saints, but will be expected to return later in the season. Another one, we got the Giants cut Tommy DeVito. That's not a surprise there. We know Tommy DeVito. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, that's right. Jalen Ramsey to the Steelers. All right, Mika Fitzpatrick's the other guy on that team. That's right, Blaze. Now I remember. Right, because you got Fitzpatrick's now. So it's going to be Fitzpatrick, then Rasul Douglas. So Fitzpatrick is an inner. He was great with the Steelers, but remember, he initially came from the Dolphins. He didn't really fit in that well there. He fit in better with the Steelers. So that's still going back to Rasul Douglas. Well, he is, like I said, I stick by what I said about Douglas, but with Fitzpatrick, remember, he was initially in Miami. He didn't play that great. So there's the big question of, do the Dolphins utilize him in the same role he did with the Steelers and he fits in well? Or does he kind of go back to his initial role in Miami? He doesn't play as well as he did in Pittsburgh. That's kind of the big question mark with Fitzpatrick, because we've seen him in this situation before. You would think the Dolphins would have studied what he did with the Steelers and said, all right, let's bring in Mika Fitzpatrick. Let's use him the way we did. So the Dolphins secondary, they get a temporary upgrade, but still not the long-term answer. We don't know about Fitzpatrick, even though he was great in Pittsburgh. Remember, he was with Miami before. He left that situation and went to Pittsburgh, where he became a top defense secondary guy. So that's the big question, is how do the Dolphins use Fitzpatrick? Well, it looks great on paper. We'll see. But the Dolphins secondary, there's still some concerns. And back to Tommy DeVito, we saw this coming. He got a little bit of playing time in 2023. He didn't really do anything spectacular. He filled in. He was loved by had that local guy appeal with the Giants base, but he didn't really do anything to light the world on fire. And now here they are. They got Jackson Dart, their projected guy for the future. They got, like I said, Russell Wilson to be the mentor. You got Jameis Winston on the roster as well. You got two veteran quarterbacks there with your young QB who you want to be your future. You don't need Tommy DeVito. I'm sure Tommy DeVito, some team might sign him before the end of the day, maybe, if he hasn't been signed already. And speaking of that, for you guys in the chat, if you hear any updates on any roster moves that are going on, they're just coming in, drop it in the chat. Let me know what's going on. But as I was saying, yeah, Tommy DeVito is not a surprise. There was no spot for him. You already have 3 QBs. And speaking of teams with QBs, the Browns. So now, Flacco's going to be the starter, but now you also got Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. Some have suggested that you got to get rid of one of those two guys. You got to stick with Flacco and Gabriel, or Flacco and Shedeur. And I think now, I'll let you guys, if you guys want to comment, do you think the Browns got to get rid of either Gabriel or Shedeur and clear some room in that QB room? You guys can let me know in the chat if you think they should or not. For me, obviously, based off what we saw at the end of the preseason, we've seen Shedeur with 2 games, played good in the first, played putrid in the recent game against the Rams. Dillon Gabriel started off against the Rams. He actually looked solid. And he did. He had some flashes against the Eagles. While he had his struggles, he had some flashes. So you look at the overall body of work that Gabriel and Shedeur did, that would lean toward keeping Gabriel on the roster. And I'll get to Sanders in a minute, particularly the other son and his idiocy in Tampa Bay when I talk about the preseason losers. And I'll talk about Shedeur a little bit there, but for the Browns, but while I was on the subject of quarterbacks and teams being crowded with QBs, you guys let me know. Do they got to get rid of one of those guys? And see, because you got McCole Hardman got cut from the Packers. You got Marlon Tuapulu, the veteran, got cut by Kansas City. Mike Edwards is cut. Let's see, you got roster cuts. You got Michael Gonzalez, Xavier Valade were cut from the Vikings. I'm looking for roster cuts, anything that stands out. And Eagles got Kyle McCord. For the Eagles fans, I'm going to talk about that later tonight, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be live again, specifically to talk about my team, the Eagles. Cut Shedeur, that would be legendary. Oh my gosh. Could you imagine both Sanders kids getting cut within the same week? And there was that one little crazy story about possibly if Shedeur were to get cut, they could try a Canadian Football League team would be interested in one or both of the Sanders kids. That would be interesting for the CFL. Would give it a little bit more publicity amongst the American fans. we might just check out some of the highlights just to see how they do. So that would help them out. That could help them out if that were to happen. But that's a big what if. That's just speculation. We don't know if that's going to happen. And the Commanders, our division rival, they extended Terry McLaurin, which is expected. So that's 3 more years of competing against him. Not shocked at all. I don't blame the Commanders one bit for keeping him. You keep your top receiver going into year 2 with what looks to be your future face of the franchise. Good move by the Commanders. And then I'll get to the Commanders in just a minute. There was another big trade they had involving a running back with the 49ers. They did cut KJ Osborne and Chris Moore. They're no longer there. You got the Titans put Tyjae Spears on short-term injured reserve list. He'll be out for the first 4 games of the season. See about his return there. And you got Bengals cutting Desmond Ridder. That's no surprise there. So far, I haven't seen anything new that's significant. What was a deal, though, big deal, though, involving the Washington Commander. Wait, Kenny Pickett. Yep, Kenny Pickett with the Vegas Raiders. Yep. Harco, I was watching Good Morning Football yesterday or listened to a podcast. Don't remember where I heard it. Heard they can't keep all 5 QBs. Oh, no, of course not. Absolutely not. No, there's absolutely no way you can keep that many quarterbacks on one team. The fact that the Browns even did this in the first place, just it goes to show you why the Browns have been the laughing stock of the NFL since returning under Jimmy Haslam's vision. I mean, there's a million different examples of the Browns butchering off free agent, drafting, etc. And this is just another example. Having 5 quarterbacks, knowing you can't keep all 5 is a joke. But moving on now to the important one. The Washington Commanders, a team that's actually starting under a new owner, starting to get an idea of how to run its franchise properly. They decided, hey, let's go and get another running back. Let's go. Hey, we got, they said keep Terry McLaurin, try to bring in Von Miller on a veteran deal, try to build a team up. But then they did get involved. They traded Brian Robinson Jr. to the 49ers. So now Robinson will back up McCaffrey and possibly could be the starter at some point, considering the injury history of McCaffrey. But time will tell on that one. But now, as of now, the 49ers, we know with Shanahan, they're going to rely heavily on the run because Shanahan's kind of like his dad, a run-heavy coach. And we've seen that Kyle Shanahan, just like his dad, can insert different running backs into the fold and make it work. That's kind of what, you see with Kyle last year. Jordan Mason, for a backup running back, did pretty solid in McCaffrey's absence. Now you're bringing a guy in Brian Robinson, who during the first couple years of his time was one of the better pieces of Washington during like the that 2022-23 range. And now, here you are now for for the 49ers, you bring him in as a backup running back. You're like, all right, here's a team that we're confident we can work with any running back we have. You got a coach with that confidence, that connection with running backs who can make it work with anyone. Now you're bringing in a guy who had success as a starter to be a good number 2 back. And if, God forbid, you need to start him as the number 1, you got him as number 1. That could be good right there that's good for the Niners. Not so great for Brian Robinson to go from being the starter to now being the number 2 guy, barring something happening that's true. But it's great for the 49ers, though, as a team. Now, here you got Christian McCaffrey. Now you got Brian Robinson as your number 2. You got 2 capable, you got either Pro Bowl or capable caliber running backs. Pro Bowl McCaffrey and a capable running back in Brian Robinson Jr., that's good for your ground game. Now, the 49ers still have concerns about the passing game and whether or not they stay healthy, but that all remains to be determined. But this could potentially be good for the Niners. So, now those are some of the late roster moves. Right now, I'm going to step aside for just 1 second, take a brief break, and then we'll be back. Then we'll talk about the projected winners and losers across the main projected winners and losers across the NFL for the preseason. So we'll be right back in 1 minute. Talk about it some more. Stay tuned. NFL season is right around the corner, which means the return of NFL Pick'ems exclusively on the Hardcore Sports Network is back. This year, your boy Nicky Stees is going to be the host again. Every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, starting September 2nd to preview Week 1. Each week on the Pick'ems, we'll have full list of games, special guests, injury reports, debates, predictions, and hot takes for the week. All on NFL Pick'ems, exclusively on the Hardcore Sports Network, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, every Tuesday throughout the NFL season. That's right, folks. That's right. So take this, starting next week, next Tuesday, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Your boy Nicky Stees will be hosting the Pick'em exclusively on the Hardcore Sports Network. So be on the lookout for that. That'll be starting next week, making its 2025 NFL season debut. So with that being said now, folks, let's dive into it. We're getting into the final portion of this show right here. We're going to talk about what's going on with the winners and losers for preseason, the projected winners and losers. We're going to start with some of the projected winners for this one. Some of the projected winners I could see coming out of this, obviously Jackson Dart for one, who had himself a solid showing in the preseason through multiple touchdown passes, has a positive TD to INT ratio. We saw some nice work there from Mr. Jackson Dart himself. Granted, this was mostly against backups, and he did throw a lot of passes behind the line of scrimmage, aka screen passes. So he didn't play great, but there was some flashes, and there is some potential for the future. Now we got to wait and see how it pans out when it comes time to enter an NFL game. And we saw another one that potentially could do probably pretty good himself is Trayvon Henderson, the running back for the New England Patriots, who's had himself a pretty good preseason, had himself a few nice runs, had himself a nice return, usually starting off. So there's some possibility that Trayvon Henderson could be that it help out at running back and provide Drake May some relief. So there's some potential for that. There's potential that with that move for the Patriots, I could see Trayvon Henderson, who's been consistently throughout the preseason putting up some solid performances, has looked pretty solid in that role. So I could see that being a potential winner there for the Patriots. And then you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have had a nice, little receiver. So you had this Johnson's his last name. What's his first name? You got Tez Johnson, who had himself a nice outing a couple days ago. He seems like a guy to me that could maybe get some time, but I don't know. Some of the latest reports are indicating he might not make the Bucs, but based on his performance in the preseason, he's a guy that could potentially maybe get some starting time, but we got to see what the Bucs do. You got Matt Golden, who's been showing out, a rookie wide receiver for the Packers, both in training camp and even during the preseason, had himself a nice highlight reel catch. He's had some highlight reel catches. He's a guy that could make the roster, maybe provide a few nice catches for the Packers, but the question is, can he stay consistent throughout the season? But that's why I always call these guys potential winners. And I do see a guy in Matt Golden who could be a potential winner come the start of the regular season. So there's some potential winners there from the preseason. And then for some of the projected preseason losers, let's start off with the obvious one, the Cincinnati Bengals. I ranted about Trey Hendrickson early at the beginning of the show. You can just take what I said there. I've already said it once. We're not going to go through it again. And then the other ones, Shiloh Sanders, the son of Dion from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who in his final preseason outing gave up a pass interference penalty, which was strike one, and then strikes, he pretty much took 2 strikes into 1. Throwing a punch, which counts as, another penalty and a game ejection. That's strike 2, second penalty, strike 3, getting tossed out of the game. And that was enough for Todd Bowles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to decide they don't want to deal with him. And I talked about it in the YouTube short, but that was a stupid boneheaded move from Shiloh Sanders. Hear me out. You're Deion Sanders' kid. Fair or not, people are going to look at you. The spotlight's always on you as Deion's son. Looking to see if you keep yourself on the up and up. Looking to see if you stay out of trouble. Keeping an eye on everything you do. There's a big spotlight there on young Shiloh Sanders for being Deion's kid. And there's some assumptions that come along with it, fair or not, that you're spoiled, you're a rotten brat because you're Deion's son. There's all these projections, like I said, fair or unfair, that come along with it. And for Shiloh Sanders, he put himself in a predicament where he allows himself to get cut. He pretty much fed into the projection that, you're Deion's kid, your dad could be a distraction, we don't want to deal with it, we're trying to run a team. He pretty much fed into those assumptions by behaving the way he did, throwing that punch, getting himself tossed out of the game. So he ultimately messed himself over with that one move right there. So that was his mistake right there. And now you don't know about his future. Could he be stuck in the Canadian Football League? Maybe, maybe not. The second big loser in this preseason is Shedeur. Now, he had himself a nice performance against the Panthers, looking like he could do something. But then he got injured. He missed a week. So that took away some playing time from him for that one game against the Eagles. Takes away an opportunity to get more experience, especially in a loaded QB room. That's the worst thing that could have happened. And then on top of it, the next strike for Shedeur is he had himself a poor preseason performance against the Rams. Throwing picks, missing his receivers. Ultimately, all around, not good for him. And then So that's put him in a bad spot. He's already got that. Part of the reason he got passed on the draft. That's a lot of teams felt like he'd be a distraction because of his dad, and they didn't feel he was truly NFL star worthy at this point. So that's strikes one and strike two. Then, on top of that, now you got poor per season performance. That's giving the Browns more incentive to say, hey, cut this guy, let's move on from him. And then another loser I could look at is even Justin Fields, because he didn't show anything new to the table from what we saw in preseason. Mostly just skittish passing, good running. That's nothing new to the table that Justin Fields has brought, especially for a guy who has played several seasons in the NFL, has started for 4 different seasons now in the National Football League. 3 with the Bears, 1 where he started a handful of games for the Steelers. He didn't look all that impressive as a passer. Now he's in the preseason showing the same. That's showing no sign of progression, no sign of growth for Justin Fields as the quarterback. He's got Garrett Wilson to throw the ball to, and Garrett Wilson, I mean, he could pretty much make any quarterback look solid when you throw him the ball. But outside of that, who does he have? Exactly. So I think that's a loss right there for Justin Fields and the Jets, because there seems to be nothing that indicates this team's going to progress. So there's a red flag in itself. I mean, those are mostly the main winners and losers for preseason that I got. If you guys, you're more than welcome to. If you guys want to comment, let me know who you have as your projected winners and losers. By all means, go right ahead, comment in the chat. Let me know what you think. And that's really all I got for now. If you guys were expecting a long list of winners and losers, the reason it didn't happen is because preseason, a lot of it's all projected. We don't really know till the regular season, because for every player that's had an excellent preseason performance that panned out during the regular season, there are players that had an excellent preseason performance that didn't pan out so well during the regular season. Sometimes that could be due to levels of competition. But most famously, when Kerry Collins was the backup to Rich Gannon on that 04 Raiders, Collins came in backup role, played well during the preseason. But then when Gannon got the career-ending neck injury, Collins had to start. He was putrid. So that's just being one historical example. But the point being is, hey, preseason, look, sometimes the guys that ball out during the preseason play well during the regular season, but sometimes they don't. That's why I always prefer to just wait till the regular season, see what they do. If they prove themselves during the regular season, I'll give you your props. If not, then I want to give some constructive criticism. That's just all, and that's how it works. I mean, that's just the way of life. And for me, that's my motto. Wait till it counts for real, and then judge you based on your performance there. But with that being said, though, guys, thanks for tuning in to episode 23 of the 3-Point Blitz. It's another fun show. Blazed, Arku, stopping by in the chat. Thank you. I appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of your day. If there are any Eagles fans that stop by, or you know any Eagles fans, let them know that at 5:30 tonight, your boy's going live to talk about the 53-man roster, both on my channel and the Hardcore Sports Network. So again, shout out to Hardcore Sports Network for always letting me stream with them. Shout out to Mitch for always being supportive of me doing content. Shout out to you guys in the chat. If you catch me later tonight for the Eagles 53-man roster show, I'll see you in the chat then. If not, have a great rest of your day. Until later tonight, it's your boy Nicky Steve signing off. Catch y'all later.